I'm sorry. Sorry, boys. This is for the ladies, but if I were you, I'd keep my ears open too. So, how many of you use tampons? All of you? Okay. And how many of you guys actually know what is in it? Probably none of you, right? But it's so important for us to know what we're putting in our bodies and know the proper way to take care of our wounds when we have injuries. So according to ToxicShock.com, TSS can follow local infections caused by scalds, insect bites, chicken pox, piercings, surgery, childbirth, and etc. It can also occur during or following menstruation and has been linked to the use of tampons. Using tampons is a popular way to control your flow. Convenient option, and just barely looking after wounds is often seen, but you should know and be informed of what you're doing and the harms that it may cause you. During this presentation, I will talk to you about how toxic shock syndrome happens and how it affects you, and also what's to blame and how to get rid of it or treat it. So what is toxic shock syndrome? TSS is defined by MedicineNet as a disease that is a grave condition occurring predominantly in menstruating women using tampons. Toxic shock is characterized by highly toxic states with sudden high fever, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle aching, and low blood pressure or hypotension, which can lead to shock and death. The key word used is predominantly, because Mayo Clinic actually states that toxic shock syndrome can affect anyone, including men, children, and postmenopausal women. Now, you may be wondering exactly what is the cause of toxic shock syndrome. The bacteria that are linked to toxic shock syndrome are called Staphylococcus aureus, which is also called staph, or Streptococcus pyogenes, which is called strep bacteria, which most cases relate to staph bacteria. The bacteria can easily be carried on the hands as well as growing in the body, according to kidshealth.org. In an article on eMedicine Health, it states that toxic shock syndrome is caused by toxins produced by bacteria. Only certain rare strains of the bacteria can produce these poisons. As the bacterial toxins are released into the bloodstream, they begin to overstimulate in the immune system and the body. This in turn causes the symptoms and toxic shock syndrome. So as far as tampons, an article from wellandgood.com names rayon, dioxin, non-organic cotton, fragrances, chlorine, and BPA as things to look out for that can be harmful to you and your body. One cause of toxic shock syndrome comes from a 16-year-old, or one case of toxic shock syndrome comes from a case of a 16-year-old girl from Canada who went on a camping trip that came down with TSS and actually died from it. She had reported feelings of nausea and just overall not feeling good, and nobody took the time to check on her, so she ended up dying. And when the coroner went in and to see what had caused it, they found a tampon and they looked at what was on the tampon, and it was the bacteria that causes TSS. So now that I've told you what toxic shock syndrome is and what causes it, let's talk about how to prevent it. According to an article from Live Science, to prevent TSS, the Cleveland Clinic recommends changing tampons at least 4 to 8 hours, and also switching between them or not using them at all, or using pads. The Cleveland Clinic also recommends that women who have recovered from a case of toxic shock syndrome should not use tampons at all. And women who have already had TSS are more likely to get it, so that's why they recommend that you don't use them. So toxic syndrome can be contracted by anybody, and there is no discrimination in the disease. The disease can be deadly, but there are certain things that you can do to prevent it from happening. seem like a great option. There are dangers associated with them, as well as not taking care of ourselves properly. Like I said earlier, this one is mostly for the ladies, but I'm sure you're glad that you kept your ears open now that you know that it can affect anybody, including men. Thanks.